Well, hello there. How are you getting refreshed these days? Welcome to River City Church Online. So glad to have you joining us today. We have a new series called Refreshment that we've just begun, and today Darrell's going to be talking about how we can be refreshed. And did you know that God planned us for refreshment? He planned rest into what we need every single day. Well, we're going to learn more about that today, and I know that you're going to have some great insight into refreshment from God's Word. Okay, so if you've been joining us for the first time or been joining us for a long time, we're so glad that you're with us today, and I hope that you will enjoy today's service. If you would like to reach out to us at any time, you can go to our website. You can go to the menu and click on Contact Us, and that will fire off a message to us. You might want to reach out to us to share something about what you want to learn about God, or maybe you just want to get to know something about this church. We'd love to answer your questions and help you know if this is a community that you want to be a part of. And I also have one announcement to share about our community, and that is that Brian and Natasha Veenstra, they are baptizing their child this morning. And we are trying to get some footage at 15 Wellington so that we can share that with you next week. Anyways, that's all I have for now. We're going to head into worship with Sean, and then Darrell's going to give the message. I'll be back with some local announcements, and I got something to share about that Diapers for Dawn campaign. Talk to you soon.
I've carried a burden for too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go, and I see it now. I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. I'll run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, oh. You saw my condition a price for my heart. I don't have a context for that kind of love. I don't understand, I can't comprehend. All I know is I need you. I'll run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, 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 again and again. Oh, 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 my heart has been in your sight long before my first breath. Running into your arms is running to life from death. And I feel this rush deep in my chest. Your mercy is calling out. Just as I am, you pull me in, and I know I need you now. I'll run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again. I'll run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. And my heart found a surgeon, my soul found a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, 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 again and again. Oh, 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 again and again.
Hey River City, I hope you're enjoying this long weekend, this August long weekend, and that you're getting some much-deserved R&R, some much-deserved rest and relaxation. If you are, then you've come to the right place this morning, because today you're going to learn how you can make every weekend feel more like a long weekend. So lots to watch out for this morning. If you're not in a place of R&R, either because you're working this morning or because you just can't get your mind in a place of refresh or relaxation, you've also come to the right place. See, today you'll discover what, in my opinion, is the biggest barrier to your and my experiencing rest and relaxation and all the other good R words that you're going to hear about that go along with that this morning. So stay tuned for that. This is week 2 in our summer series entitled Refresh. Refresh. Now, among other things, we Canadians love the summer because it's the time of the year when the weather's the nicest, the weather's the most predictable, And so, not surprising, we spend more time out of doors in the summer than any other season, more time in nature. It's also the time of year that many of us book most of our days away, our weekends away, and our vacations, either personal vacations or family vacations. And so summer becomes the season when most of us expect to be refreshed, right? And it's something we look forward to. I don't know how many of you are campers, but I know a number of us at River City are campers. And here in Ontario, when you book a campsite, you've got to book it, I think, 5 months in advance. So already in January or February, we're kind of looking forward to that refreshing time of year that we call summer. And if we ordinarily look forward to being refreshed in the summer, I think it's doubly so this year, having just come out of our third lockdown and having just come through 17 months of pandemic. Now, fortunately, the Bible has loads to say about this topic of refresh and how we can find refreshment. And it's actually more so than I even thought before I began studying for this series. Many of you know that the Old Testament, or most of it, was written in Hebrew. The original was Hebrew. Well, in the Hebrew language, get this, in the Hebrew language, there are at least seven different words that convey refresh, rest, replenishment, rejuvenation, restoration. At least 7 different words. And then if you flip over to the New Testament, most of which was written in Greek originally, you'll discover there's at least 4 additional words that are synonyms or convey this concept of refresh and rest and all those other great things that we like. And so in light of the fact that there are 7 Old Testament words and 4 New Testament words, so at least 11 biblical words for this concept of refresh, which we desperately need in the summertime, I would say that this is a significant theme throughout the Bible. It's a significant biblical theme. And what's great is that in this series, you're going to come across most, if not all, of those terms in their original biblical context. Jesus once told a parable. I'm sure all of you have heard about this one. It was a parable to illustrate the importance of building on a firm foundation, right? He said the wise person builds their house on rock, right? I won't talk about the fool. We'll just talk about the wise person right now. So anytime you're building something that you want to last, anytime that you're building something that you want to take you far, you need to make sure that the foundation is firm. Well, I want this series to take you far. And I want the takeaways that you pick up from this series to last, I would say, a lifetime for each of you watching today. Because rest and replenishment and refreshment are such an important part when it comes to living a joy-filled life, which is what Jesus came to bring us, an abundant, joy-filled life. So if we're going to go to the foundation of refresh, we need to go way back in the Bible, like right to the very beginning, to the Bible's first book, which is Genesis. Genesis chapter 1, so the opening chapter, not just of Genesis, but of the entire Bible, provides a high-level view of how God created the universe and everything in it, right? It's a high-level view. It's looking at it kind of from a distance, and it's about how God brought order out of chaos. Order out of chaos. And then when you flip over to Genesis chapter 2, it opens with this summary statement, and I quote, "Thus, the heavens and the earth were completed, they were created in all their vast array. By the 7th day, God had finished the work that he had been doing, and so on the 7th day, he rested from all his work, and then God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done." So that there is the first instance of refresh in the Bible. It's the first instance of refresh and concepts around it like resting that you can come across in the Bible. And what you notice is we are very early on in the Bible. This is just the opening verse or verses of the very second chapter of the very first book of the Bible. Really, you couldn't talk about refresh any sooner because prior to this time, creation didn't even exist, right? But notice, the Bible doesn't say God created this awesome universe and everything that it contains, and then he let nature run its course. He let the plants and the animals and the humans multiply and do their thing. He watched as land got developed and as cities got built. And when he noticed that human beings were weary and worn from all of their working, God created the concept of rest, and he encouraged us to make time, to slow down, to find refreshment so that we could get out there and back to the real business of life, which is building and producing and cultivating and harvesting and selling and buying and so forth. That's not what the Bible says. No. Before the plants and the animals and the humans could do anything, God creates the concept of rest. Also interesting, the first rest in history is taken not by plants or animals or humans or even the land. The first rest in history is taken by God himself. Now, sometimes when I'm talking with younger children, they'll say, well, did God rest because he was tired? It's a great question, children. Did God rest because he was tired? And the answer is no. God rested on the seventh day because his work was finished. Creation was complete. So rest was kind of a way of demarking that completeness. Just like when you and I read a book, say you read a novel, a 300-page novel, it's not one continuous full page from beginning to end. There are divisions called chapters, and there are breaks, pages where there's no writing. So you can get a rest, you can catch your breath. When one idea is complete, when one chapter is complete, you wrap it up and you insert some space, and then you begin writing a new chapter with a new heading. So number one, God rested because that initial chapter of creation was complete. There was a completeness. And before he goes on to write more, God hits pause and he rests. The second reason God rested was to celebrate and to enjoy all that he had made. You know, if you read Genesis chapter 1, you're going to hear this phrase, and it was very good, and it was very good, and it was very good. That phrase gets repeated time and time again through the creation account. It was a very good, not just a good creation, a very good creation, and it was something worth celebrating. I mean, what good is having a very good creation if you don't hit pause and make time to actually enjoy it, to observe the creation, to notice it? And so God took the seventh day as a day of rest so that he could notice the very goodness and beauty of all he had made. He noticed the beauty in what was big, like the stream of that the Milky Way casts across our galaxy. He noticed the beauty also in what was very small, like the iridescent colors on a tiny leaf beetle. Now that word translated in our English Bibles as rested, it comes from the Hebrew Shabbat, from which we get the word Sabbath. Sabbath refers to a period of resting, and especially a period of resting from work. Now in the context, or rather the next time this word Shabbat comes up in the Bible, at least when it comes up in the context of work, is in the second book of the Bible, the book of Exodus, in chapter 5. And here's the context. God's plan to reach the world and to communicate his love to the world involved him working through a particular nation or people, and that nation and people were the Israelites. Now early on, when the Israelites were a very small people group and didn't even have a land of their own, they end up living in Egypt because of a severe famine. And at first, the Israelites enjoyed a very good life in Egypt. Right? At first, life in Egypt was very good. The Israelites continued to multiply. They had many children. They were prosperous. Arguably, life for the Israelites in Egypt was too good. And maybe you're listening, you're like, what? Like, how can life be too good, right? I mean, I'll take all the good life will give me, right? What I mean by that is that when you look at people's lives, whether it's in the Bible or whether it's throughout history, or look at your own life or look at my life, those times when life is very good, when things come easy for us, when we're prospering, when we're doing really well, it's those times that our relationship with God tends to cool. It tends to cool off. Because we think we're doing it all on our own. We think we don't need God because life is very good. And so that's exactly what happened to the Israelites when they were in Egypt during this good time. You could say they became spiritual casualties of the good life. Word to the wise. At any rate, a new king, a new Pharaoh comes into power. And he sees the Israelites, these foreigners living in his land, and they're multiplying, they're becoming more numerous. And he comes to see them as like a national threat. And so he decides, hey, before the Israelites outnumber us, before they get too much power, I'm going to subject them to slavery. And so he makes the Israelites his slaves. Now, as you know, slavery or a life of slavery is never good, right? It's not a good thing, but it's also not an enjoyable thing. We're not going to go there now, but if you want to read about the harsh working conditions that the Israelites as slaves faced, you can read Exodus chapter 1 and you can learn how harsh it was, how hard it was, how backbreaking. Exodus chapter 1. Finally, the Israelites call out, they cry out to God for help, and God graciously not only hears them, but he raises up a deliverer in a man named Moses, and he sends Moses to Pharaoh with a message wherein he insists that Pharaoh set the Israelites free. Well, as you might imagine, this doesn't go so well for Moses. I'm reading from Exodus chapter 5, verse 5. Now remember, the Israelites are already slaves and they're already working their tails off. Then Pharaoh said, "Look, the people of the land," referring to the Israelites, "are now numerous, and you, Moses, are stopping them from working." Now, that phrase translated to stop them from work is to Shabbat, right? You're giving them rest when I don't want them to have rest. That's the first instance of Shabbat in the Bible is in Genesis chapter 2 when God rests, and this is the second time we come across the term Shabbat. Pharaoh doesn't want the people to stop working, so he exercises his kingly power to ensure that they get no rest, they get no Shabbat. And here's how. Reading on in Exodus chapter 5. That same day, Pharaoh gave this order to the slave drivers and overseers in charge of the people. "You are no longer to supply the Israelites with straw for making bricks. Let them go and gather their own straw, but require them to make the same number of bricks as before. Don't reduce the quota. They are lazy. That's why they're crying out. Make the work harder for the people so that they keep working." So slaves who had already been working from sunup to sundown 6 days a week now have to do that essentially 7 days a week, because now they've got to gather the straw to make their own bricks, right? They can't reduce the number of bricks. They need to keep the quota at the same number, but now instead of the Egyptians providing them with straw that they mixed into the mud and so forth to make their bricks, the Israelite slaves had to gather straw themselves. And that's what they would have been doing on their day off, as is suggested a few verses later in chapter 5, in verse 12. So what we have here in Exodus 5 is the opposite of rest, the opposite of refresh. Here we have a picture of work and work only. In his greed, Pharaoh asks for more. In his power, Pharaoh demands more. God creates us human beings. Pharaoh here recreates God's people as human doings. Human doings. Now, all of their worth, all of their value was contingent wholly on what they produce and how much they produce. And guess what? People of power have been viewing others the same way ever since. How much work is enough? For the pharaohs of this world, the answer is the same. It's always more. Always more. How many bricks should we make tomorrow, Pharaoh? Well, how many did you make yesterday? Well, we made 1,000. Well, tomorrow make it 1,100. The next week rolls around and Pharaoh shows up on the site angry, and you're wondering, what's wrong? We've consistently produced 1,100 bricks a day for the past week. And Pharaoh says, hey, now that I know you can produce 1,100 bricks, your new quota is 1,200 bricks. Take it up a level. And on it goes. God rested after his work of creating, but for mankind now, rest becomes a luxury. Pharaoh steals our Shabbat. He steals our rest. And I know many of you who are listening can relate to this statement. You work in professions where you're always encouraged to give more, to work more hours, to produce more, to sell more, to increase your quotas. And you're always discouraged from taking time off. Yeah, you can have your vacation time, but don't take it now because we can't afford it. Can you postpone it to the fall? The fall comes, and it's like, no, save it for Christmas. That's a family time. Christmas comes and sales are record-breaking. We can't afford you to go now. Postpone your vacation. We'll give you a really good bonus to make it worth your while. Or you're an engineer and you design a wind turbine that's 92% efficient. Is it ever good enough? No, right? We need more efficiency. Until we get to 100% efficiency, you're going to always be going back to the drawing board to produce better and more. Like I said, many of you listening are all too familiar with people of power stealing our Shabbat, stealing our rest. Well, long story short, through Moses, God eventually wears Pharaoh down, and he's begging the Israelites to leave, right? At the end of the plagues, he's begging the Israelites to leave, and we call this great departure of the slaves from Egypt, we call that the Exodus. Well, hardly are the Israelites free and out of Egypt, then God gives them this command. And if you're following along in your Bible, this is from Exodus chapter 20. Exodus 20, verses 8 through 11, from the familiar list of commands from the Bible that we often refer to as the 10 Commandments. God says, "Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath, a Shabbat, to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male, nor your female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed Shabbat. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy." Question: why would God feel the need to give the Israelites this command? Right? To me, the other 9 commandments, they make sense. But this commandment here about Sabbath keeping, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, why would God need to command his people to set aside 1 day in 7 as a day for rest and refreshment and replenishment and rejuvenation and refocus and reverence? Because at this point, wouldn't a day like that or a command like that be redundant? I mean, after slaving 7 days a week, year in, year out for Pharaoh, wouldn't the Israelites naturally set apart at least 1 day for rest, replenishment, and even reverence? You'd think so, wouldn't you? That's what I thought. However, truth be told, it isn't just Pharaoh or your boss or the man or the government or the corporation that steals your and my Shabbat. Ironically, counterintuitively, each of us does a pretty darn good job stealing our own Shabbat. And you say, how? Well, how, according to conventional thinking, do people get ahead in this world? Isn't the way to get ahead to work more and rest less than the person next to you or the nation next to you? And since everyone wants to get ahead, that's what we do. All of us feel the pressure to be top dog. And even if you don't capitulate to that pressure, you certainly don't want to be the bottom dog, right? That way, if cutbacks come or if layoffs happen, then you're not the staffer who gets cut. You get to keep your job. But it's not just pressure in the workplace. There's pressure in our neighborhood, right? Depending which neighborhood you live in, but there's pressure to keep your lawn up to a certain standard, pressure to have certain vehicles, price tag vehicles parked in your driveway, or certain toys parked alongside your fence. But it's not just pressure in the workplace or pressure in the neighborhood. There's even pressure in our family of origin, right? Parents do so much for us, but they also expect a lot from us, and we kids can feel that pressure sometimes. And then there's also pressure when it comes to sibling rivalry, right? You look at how your sister is doing or how your brother is doing, and again, you may not want to be the top dog, but you certainly don't want to be the bottom dog. And then there's pressure internally, right? To provide a certain standard of living for my family, to provide for my spouse or for my kids, or to ensure that we're a success or that we can reach our financial goals. The truth is, even without a Pharaoh, we faced a very strong temptation not to rest, not to Shabbat, not to refresh or to replenish ourselves. In fact, many of us feel guilt if we're doing nothing. And so we find ways, even if we have to devise ways to do something 7 days a week. God knows what's best for us. He created us, after all. He knows that if Shabbat is simply a guideline or a recommendation, very few of us will enter it. Very few of us will experience the gift of rest that He wants to give us. And that's why He makes it a commandment, not just a commandment, one of the 10, the big 10. Sabbath is God's way to remind us, listen, I freed you from Pharaoh. You're no longer in bondage to him, but don't make yourself in bondage to yourself. I love you. I'm a good God. The same gift that I gave myself after my work of creating the world, I want you to have it. I want it for you. And because I know you're going to have a hard time taking and receiving the gift of Shabbat, either for internal reasons or external reasons, I'm including it in my word as a command. It's my command to you. I'm commanding you to rest, to refresh, to replenish, to rejuvenate, and all the rest. This is exactly what Jesus was trying to say many, many years after the Exodus, right? When Jesus was in the midst of his ministry, early on in his ministry, he was trying to teach listeners this when he said the following, and it's recorded in Mark chapter 2, verse 27, that the Sabbath was made for mankind and not man for the Sabbath. In other words, God didn't give the gift of Sabbath just so that we got another thing that we've got to, another burden that we've got to carry. No, the Sabbath is God's gift to us, and he made it a command because he knew that everything in us, just our human nature, would work to produce more, and unless we had a command to rest, we probably wouldn't do a very good job of it. God freed us from Pharaoh. He gave us Shabbat as a command so we wouldn't become Pharaoh unto ourselves. So receive his gift of rest. And you say, how? Well, learn about Sabbath. You got Google just like me. Learn about Sabbath and find ways to keep and observe Sabbath that feel restful and replenishing and refreshing to you, to your household, to your family, to your friends. And then punctuate your life with this rhythm of 1 day in 7 being set apart as holy unto the Lord, as a gift to you, as evidence of God's love, and as your weekly opportunity to bask and to refresh yourself in the experience of God's love. Some people argue, that it has to be a certain day, right? Some say it has to be, sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, and others say, no, it's really the day Saturday, and others say it's Sunday. I think what day of the week that you observe is less important, thankfully, than that you follow that rhythm. That it's 1 day every 7 days that you receive as a gift from God, and that you acknowledge it as a gift from God. Give yourself permission to take your Savior at His word, to take God at His word. Jesus said, and I quote, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden light." So accept Jesus' light burden by building your life around Him, making Jesus your foundation, and taking Jesus at His word. If you turn the Bible, we've kind of worked from Genesis right to the end of the Bible almost. If you turn your Bible a bit past the Gospel of Mark, you come to Hebrews, and in Hebrews 4 verse 9, we're reminded of the following: "There remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God." So this isn't just an Old Testament concept. It's not just a Jewish concept. It's a New Testament concept. And guess what? Our observing Sabbath now is our preparation for the eternal Sabbath that we will enter together, that followers of Jesus will enter together when He returns. Remember that. So begin preparing for that eternal Sabbath by practicing weekly Sabbath right now. You want rest? You want refreshment? Of course you do. That's why you're watching this series today. Well, this is the first, and it's the foundational step. Begin practicing Sabbath weekly. It is the foundation for that rest and refreshment that all of us want, indeed that all of us need. Have an awesome day.
Well, thanks for tuning in today to River City Church Online. I hope that you are feeling refreshed with just this one talk. But listen in for more talks and you're going to get even more refreshed. If you have any questions today about our service or about anything that you've heard, you just want to reach out to our pastor, you can go to our menu, click on Contact Us, and we'll get a message out to him so that you can start talking. And we hope that you will grow spiritually and get to know God better and better each week. All right, I want to talk to you about our Diapers for Dawn campaign. This campaign is for the Dawn Pregnancy Center, and they are a center that helps young moms who are in crisis, any moms who are in crisis with a pregnancy that has been unexpected. One thing that young children go through a lot of, especially babies, is they go through a lot of diapers. So collecting diapers is a really practical way for us to help out this agency. Now, if you are listening online, how can you get your diapers to us? Well, if you go to our menu and click on Contact Us, send us a message, and then we will work on arranging either a pickup or a drop-off so that we can bring any diapers that you wish to contribute to the Dawn Pregnancy Center down to 15 Wellington. We'd love to build a big tower of diapers there and really show how we can rally together as a community to support this agency. All right, well, that's about it for today. And I just hope that you have a great week, and I will see you here again for the next episode of Refreshment. Bye for now.